Great. Just maybe to check in, is there anything that you need to park away for yourself just to really be present right now?
No, thank you. I appreciate the question, and I've already done that to be here with you.
Okay, great. And could you maybe tell me a little bit about yourself in the context of well-being in organizations, just to be able to really understand your perspective in that context? So is there anything that we cannot find about you on your CV, for example, about well-being in organizations that could be relevant about your experience?
Yeah, it's I've been thinking about it because, especially in light of a conversation that I had with a colleague a few days ago, that well-being is not a goal. It's an indicator that a system works well, is that the components within it have well-being. But organizations or even ecosystems are not set up to create well-being. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It reminds me of something that I read many years ago, and I don't remember who said it, that if you pursue happiness, you won't get it. But if you pursue things like, purpose, integrity, meaning, all of that kind of stuff, then happiness ensues, which is a very nice distinction between pursue and ensue.
Okay.
So I if you're thinking that you're talking with someone whose work is about well-being in organizations, I'm the wrong person for you.
Mm-hmm. And where do you think it could be relevant? So what would make you eventually the right person? What has been your experience in organizations so far? Just to have a little bit of an idea, of an overview.
That I think that I'm not against well-being, and I am deeply concerned about the way that well-being is sacrificed for any number of goals. I mean, under capitalism, it would be for profit. Under socialism, it would be for some future ideal or whatever. But that some idea that well-being can and should be sacrificed for something else is at the root of every dictatorial system, of which I consider capitalism to be dictatorial in its own way. I don't believe that capitalism is freedom.
What does well-being mean to you? So in your own words, or maybe there's an anecdote or moment that really represents well-being for you.
I can say personally that I have well-being when I am in the flow of being well-focused on purpose, aligned with values, and in good relationship with whoever and whatever surrounds me. That is when I feel maximal well-being.
And would you say in an organizational context how you would define well-being? And would you say that it would go together, like work and life go together? Should it be one? Or would it mean a clear separation of the two?
I have a belief that separation has been, of any kind, that separation has been a curse for humanity and ultimately for the planet. That the original separation was the separation of humans from nature. I mean, even the creation of something called nature requires separating from life. And that is what I see that patriarchy has done. And so ever since then, we are continually separating. And every time there is separation, there is decline in well-being.
Could you tell me also about maybe one experience that you've had where you've realized the importance of well-being in organizations?
I can't answer because I don't have that frame that well-being in organizations is important. So I don't know how to realize something that I don't have as a frame.
So for you, in which context do you think well-being is important? What can organizations do to support well-being?
To have a clear purpose, that is operationalized, to have honest values that are operationalized, and to have relationships that are functional.
So it's about coherence. So being coherent between the values and the purpose, and what is happening in the day-to-day in the organization.
Just as a tiny thing in English is congruence, not
congruence.
Coherence, it's a false cognate. In English, coherence means something else, close, but not quite the same. So other people might not, who don't know this, might not understand what you mean. But it's so. How would I say it? The purpose of an organization is not to create well-being. That's the purpose of the community, is to support well-being for the people who are within that community. The purpose of an organization is to make something happen. And so this is a little bit of tension that I have with your frame. If so I will give you an example from something else. I was doing some work with an organization a few weeks ago, and the topic of equity came up. And then there was this strong discussion about, so the organization is a mindfulness organization. And the discussion was, are we a mindfulness organization that values equity? Or do people want to change us into an equity organization that does mindfulness? And so it became very clear that there's a difference between purpose and values. The mindfulness is the purpose. Equity is one of the values. So in effect, I would want the well-being of all the entities within the organization to be at least an implicit value within the organization, but it's not its purpose.
And so if we work in an organization, if you work in an organization, so do you see two different layers? So the community of the people that are collaborating and the structure of that's there. Is it this way that you would describe it as well?
I don't believe that an organization is a community. It might become one, but it's not designed to be one. It's designed to be a way for people to make something happen together. So I was thinking as I read your thing that maybe I'm not the right person for you to interview, because the fundamental framework is different. And it's a very odd thing to say, because I am fiercely frightened about the decline of well-being, but I don't think that you can accomplish well-being in organizations by trying to create well-being in organizations. I'm thinking it will happen if you do these other things. If that makes sense to you?
Yes. What would be those other things? So if I'm working in a company and I have my normal private life and I'm part of different communities, what would you recommend me to do to achieve well-being? Because I guess I also have the need of making a living, and I have the need of maybe contribution and different other needs. So where do you see the possibility for people to achieve well-being?
In organizations, very limited in the world as it is, incredibly limited.
So your recommendation would be to look outside of the organization for sources of maintaining your well-being.
I would recommend changing the way the world is structured. I don't believe that there can be individual well-being within an ailing world. There can be, you know, like little bubbles, but they're always at cost to something else. We're not set up to attend to human needs. The world is not set up to attend to human needs. You know, let's just take an example. Most work that happens within the corporate world, almost all of it is meaningless. Anywhere from meaningless to destructive. I mean, are we aligned on this, or do you see it differently?
In terms of contributing something to the needs, to the planetary needs, for example. Yeah, I could agree to that.
Okay, so let's say one day you wake up and you realize, oh my God, this is terrible what I'm doing. It's boring, it saps my spirit, I don't have true autonomy, the relationships are phony, the cost to planetary biosphere of what this company does is terrible, people are exploited, all of this. You realize this, you wake up. Then, if I'm gonna kind of like push the point, then you have a choice between financial suicide and spiritual suicide. Because you can stay in the organization because it gives you the money to do other things. And that's spiritual suicide, because you already know that it's really not good for human spirit. You don't want to be there. Or you can decide to leave. And then, you know, what most people do when they leave the corporate world is they try to become yoga teachers, massage therapists, coaches, consultants, or whatever. And there's only so many of those that our global economy can absorb. So eventually you end up making a whole lot less money, having a whole lot less capacity to feed your family and all of that. And that choice between spiritual suicide and financial suicide is not an individual choice, it's a systemic construct. So for me to try to fix the problem at an individual level is already missing the point that the setup of global neoliberal capitalism, it makes it impossible en masse to have well-being. Individuals might manage to carve out something, but I don't actually want to engage at that level. Because every time I engage at that level, I actually contribute to the ability of the system to continue. Because
so your purpose is to try to engage at the collective level, to create collective consciousness for the need to shift the structures or the system, to start a new way.
I don't actually know what will create the change that I'm talking about. It will. Right now, I see one of three things. One is mass global mobilization and rebellion. Another, I just forgot one of the three. I had it a second ago and it disappeared. A second one is collapse. Yeah, I think that I maybe those are just the two. Is either rebellion that will change everything, or collapse, because I don't believe the system can change itself. The interconnectedness of everything in the world now, economically and politically, is so intense that I don't see it. I don't see where is the leverage point from within which it can change, unless large masses of humans take action.
And how would you imagine a world to look like where everyone is well? So what would be this ideal world that we are kind of all trying to create in some way? Maybe sometimes less successful and sometimes more successful.
Oh, mostly less successful. If you look at the last 10,000 years or so, and you plot power and resource concentration as a variable, you will see mostly a linear and eventually exponential movement of power and resources into the hands, more and more of it into the hands of fewer and fewer people.
And when you think of that world that we would like to create or would like to have at some point, what do you see? What do you see different to what we have today?
No money, no coercion, no shame, no obedience. A basic principle of organizing is identifying the needs that are available, the needs that are in existence, and that I mean the needs of all life, not just human needs. Identify the resources that are available and do the best match possible of resources to needs. Direct match, not mediated through who has money, because as soon as you introduce who has money, because I think of money as a claim against the available resources. And so gradually over time, we moved from having needs be the claim to having money be the claim. And when money is the claim, the fact that you have a need has no efficacy. So fundamentally, I would want a world that restores the efficacy of needs.
So it's actually illogical to put money against resources.
Yeah. For example, we have pockets of where we see that illogic. You know, when a baby is born, the mother gives milk to the baby if she's not messed up by global messaging. She gives milk to the baby according to the baby's needs, not according to how much money the baby has to pay for her milk. And that is very simple.
So this would be this needs-based society where you are aware of people's individual needs, and there's maybe also some collective needs. And then there is the ecosystem needs and society needs, thinking about people on the other side of the planet, for example. So the wider society that we have.
Yeah, at whatever level you are thinking, it would be thinking from the basis of needs. And, about a year ago, I created with a group of people a model of global governance, a fully collaborative global governance model that you might want to look at if, just maybe it will inspire you, maybe not, I don't know. But fundamentally, right now, what is put at the center is the needs of capitalists. That is what drives everything. And that is at cost to everything else. If you start from local communities and their needs, and they organize as local communities, and then start coordinating things beyond, you can ultimately get a way of organizing the entire global human population in such a way that people have a say about the decisions and flow of resources that affect their lives.
It's a bit the idea of Nash, of the Nash Equilibrium, and compared to Adam Smith, who always was saying, it's kind of the father of the capitalism, who was saying everyone is taking care of their own needs and is competing in this marketplace, the idea of considering your own needs and also the collective needs, and then trying to find a
Yeah, but we're talking still at the individual level.
Mhm.
It's not like every individual person is suddenly going to become a saint, is going to, change their consciousness. It's that I'm talking about creating systems that support the flow based on needs.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't be making a whole, we would be making decisions with other people, not alone.
Mhm.
And that mechanism of making decisions with takes care of the distribution of needs.
So it's kind of inclusive, like, for example, sociocracy, that is really considering everybody's voice rather than looking for majority solutions where people dominate or certain groups can dominate everyone else.
Yes, I think sociocracy is somewhat limited in its capacity to do this, but yes, something like this.
And what do you think, like, how would this change if you would just make magic and suddenly this world would be there? How would this change the interactions you would have with your friends or with your neighbors, or that we would have with people on the street, for example? How would this world be different, or this paradigm shift?
I have a sense, I mean, it's backed up by what I know is being measured, that all of us walk around with a low to medium grade activation of our fight, flight, freeze mechanism. We're always a little bit like this. And that is because we grew up in fear and shame. And we live in a world of separation, scarcity, and powerlessness. If we reclaim our collaborative evolutionary makeup, our fundamental level of stress will come down. Every interaction will be different.
So we would move more towards this sense of abundance rather than scarcity in our way of interacting.
It depends on what you mean by abundance. People have corrupted the word abundance to mean excess. And abundance is not more than you need. Abundance is about regeneration. And there's an ancient wisdom that says that if everybody takes what they need and not more, there will be enough. And that is something we have forgotten.
Yeah, keeping in mind the limitation of the resources available. And what do you think would be maybe new challenges that would come up?
I don't know. My sense is there will be, lots of issues to resolve all the time. And that is part of life, is constant, constant give and take. Things change. There isn't kind of like homeostasis. There will be a lot to work out, but there will be much more capacity to do it. And so things will be worked out repeatedly in ways that aim to work for everyone rather than for expedience, for profit, coercion, conformity, all of these things. So I don't anticipate new challenges. I anticipate, if we even make it there, that there would be a long transition period. And at the end of that transition period, there will be a lot of fundamental peace.
And how is it for you to think of this, this world, this kind of dream world that maybe many of us have in some way, or this kind of sense somehow, and try to achieve?
It's not a dream world for me, in the sense that I actually have done a lot of writing about it. In one of my books, I have 12 stories that describe that future world in detail. Each of them is like a day in the life of someone, and it kind of like demonstrates how that world could theoretically function. And each story, there are 12 of those stories, and each of them kind of solves a particular problem. Kind of answers, yeah, but how would you deal with ... So it's not a dream. I've lived there. I've lived there, not on the material plane, but I've lived there, and it's palpable. It's tangible, and it's detailed. And in my actual work, I try to approximate it as much as possible within a world that is at odds with it. So how I function individually is as much as I can with it. When I collaborate with other people, we create collaborative structures that as much as possible approximate it. When I work with organizations, like when I consult for organizations, I look at where they are and I work with them to the extent that they want to become more collaborative. If they don't want to become more collaborative, there's nothing for me to do there. I don't want to just get people to be more efficient at destroying things. If there is a true interest in collaboration, then there is a, kind of like a step-by-step process. There isn't a one-size-fits-all model, but the process that I follow with an organization that when organizations follow it, and to be honest with you, incredibly few have. I, in fact, am at this point able to point to only one organization that I've worked with that is really seriously working with these materials and implementing them, and that's this mindfulness organization that I was just mentioning, where the way to do it is to first get really clear on your purpose and values as an organization, and then review all the systems within the organization and align them with the purpose and values. And if you do that, and if you involve people in this process of realignment, instead of there being like a person who does it, you end up with an organization that is far more collaborative, far more aligned, where people are much more engaged, and in that sense have much more well-being. It was easy with this organization because they have a purpose that is so clearly life-affirming. They run mindfulness retreats for teens. But if you are, if you try to do this, let's say at an arms company, it's not possible because their purpose to begin with is anti-life.
Yeah, so it very much depends on the purpose, how far you can go, actually.
The purpose and the values, yeah. If we're going to move to a world that works, there are going to be tons of organizations that will need to close down. They have no real purpose to serve.
And how does it feel for you to kind of have such a clear sense of this future world and see the disability of our society to adapt to it and be in touch with this tension?
Enormous grief. And I confront the grief all the time and engage with it, because otherwise I would disappear in a kind of paralyzing despair. But when I get deeply into the grief, allow myself to get into it, I have more energy to keep doing the work. I don't have any illusion that I will manage to change the global systems. But I have an illusion or a hope that the work that I'm doing and the tools that I'm creating and the people that I'm working with will be more and more available, so that if and when things shift and people want support in relearning to collaborate, the information, the tools, and the people ready to apply it are in existence.
And would you think that maybe it's also up to all of us to connect with this grief or this sense of also guilt and of, especially guilt towards the environment and society for all the inequalities that we are helping to create and sustaining to create in order to move forward?
I don't believe that guilt is a useful feeling to have.
Hmm.
It's because guilt has within it the idea of wrongness.
Hmm.
Grief has a different flavor. Grief is much more directly connected to life. It's directly connected to how much I want things to work well for all life,
Hmm.
and the gap between that vision and the reality. But guilt assumes that, yeah, I'm not interested in having me or others feel guilty.
Hmm. I'm just referring to it because Joanna Macy, she speaks a lot about this feeling that we all feel kind of responsible for what we're creating. We're suppressing those feelings, and we've learned to not connect with them. So maybe there is a need to actually confront them and to learn how to create, how to transform guilt into grief. So we can actually take action, and it allows us to kind of unleash this towards power that goes towards action rather than towards resignation.
Yeah.
Mm.
Have you interviewed her?
No, I've done several courses with one of her students from France. And I was planning to interview at least the student. She knows a lot. She's been a really close friend of her for quite a while. And I've done several courses myself and connected with the process. So definitely I would like to integrate the thinking, that for sure.
Because I have a personal connection with her and with her main colleague. So I could at least most likely get you to be able to interview the person who works most closely with her.
That would be wonderful. Yes, that would be really nice. Yeah, I think it's very important to speak about this part as well, as it connects so much with NVC as well, and with the wider ecosystem perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm. Is there anything else that comes up for you that you think should be added that's missing?
It's really important for me that you don't miss the systemic perspective. I worry that you're focusing on individual and individual consciousness and individual behavior and individual relationships, and I'm troubled by that perspective. If I'm accurate in my sense of it.
So for you, it's important that we also consider the system, so not just one collective, but rather the society as such and how it is structured, so that we can lead.
Things systemically at all levels, both organizations. There's so many intertwined systems, and to really be aware of the effect of systems on individuals.
Yeah, I'm quite familiar with constellation work, so maybe it's a good idea to also bring in some perspectives from that on that front.
Yeah, but constellation is still fairly individual. I'm talking about far larger systems. Yeah. Maybe if you read that 30-page article, I think you might get a sense of what I'm talking about. I'm unsure. I don't have a reliable pathway of how to support people in moving from individual to systemic perspective. I don't know exactly in this moment how to do it.
Yeah, actually, I'm collaborating with Oksana, who is a biologist and who is very much focusing on the ecosystem and also societal system perspective. She brings an Eastern European point of view as well into this work. And so I'm hoping with her together to be able to construct, because I'm maybe more coming from this idea of a collective, because that's just simply what I'm interested in, the living system as such, but maybe smaller systems. And she's more coming from the global perspective, looking at the wider, like how we can reach wider change. So this could maybe be a possibility as well.
And also the intermediate, like organizations also have their own systems. And if I come into an organization the nature of the systems into which I come
Mhm.
will shape the options that I have as an individual.
Hmm. Hmm. In neuroscience, maybe to go really to the individual level, in neuroscience, they found that there's like 4 different aspects that can lead, like can be skills that you can actually train to have, to improve your subjective well-being, which is outlook. So the way you look at things. So rather than looking at negative, to consider the positive. It's awareness, just simply to be aware of how am I feeling, since we are becoming less and less aware.
All of these
And
tools,
mhm.
are available for the people of the rich countries. This is part of what so bothers me about this, is that
Mm.
and there are these things, find your bliss, here, do this course and you will find what you're meant to do in life, and still somebody has to pick up the garbage.
Hmm.
So I am not part of this movement of individual well-being, and I don't want to be part of it, and I don't want to be used for it.
Yeah.
I want to come down very clearly. I'm not interested in my words being used to support individual well-being. Not that I'm against it, it's that I don't want to focus there.
Yeah, understand.
That's very deep for me.
Yeah, understand. I was just going to say that this is what people are speaking about. They're speaking about individual well-being. They're also speaking about resilience and about giving and compassion. And what I've been looking at is at collective level and also at ecosystem level, that there is also ecosystem outlook. So do we look at the issues that we're facing, or do we look at the possibilities that are there? And ecosystem awareness, the consciousness for our actions in connection to what's happening in the world, the resilience, which is actually planetary resilience, and also I think the social tissue in some way, that the system that we are part of is falling apart slowly, and the interconnectedness that leads to a negative impact. And then also giving and compassion, so the idea of building compassion and allowing compassion towards the environment and practicing it, and towards the society as such. So that maybe these skills can be also equally applied as we are applying them now in neuroscience to the individual, maybe also to the planet and to society and to the organizational systems that we are part of.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's not possible directly to extrapolate from individual to a larger level. It's a different set of skills because it's a coordination at a different level of different things, and how to make an organization function and how to make an individual function requires different skills, different capacities. Yeah, it's very strange. I have no idea how I'm coming across. I hope I'm not coming across as a misanthrope, because
I can very much connect to what you're saying. So what I heard was really that you're very concerned because there's a big movement right now that's speaking about making the individual really be well, and so becoming, it's actually a very individualistic movement. You could market it as that, because it's very much about the individual fulfilling their individual needs, right? And that we are really forgetting about the collective needs and also the planetary needs and society needs at all different levels. That there's really a neglection of this part in the whole movement of well-being. So we're actually forgetting about what people call sustainability these days. And actually our attempt is really to look at, to really show as a maybe key message of this book we're trying to put together, is to show that one doesn't go without the other. So there's this happiness movement, which is all about short-term pleasure and joy, and that in order to really have sustainable pleasure and joy, there is a need to look at also planetary well-being and societal well-being, and to really question the whole structure. But what we're trying to do is also to think about action, so not just to make a point, but also to see what does that mean for us as individuals. How can we actually contribute to this new world, or this new change? And maybe this would be also my question to you of what can we do once we've reached this level of awareness and this understanding?
So the way that what I tell individuals that try to study with me is essentially have a clear vision and then of clear vision, clear purpose, clear values. And in each moment, when I make one of the million of decisions that I make every day, to actually pause and think of how I can make that decision in a way that moves as far as possible in the direction of my vision, purpose, values.
Mm.
And how to do that in interaction with other people. And how to leverage my influence, however small it is, to move the entirety of whatever I'm part of in that direction. So, for example, just to a very tiny example, if I walk down the street and somebody asks me for money, which is a very common phenomenon in urban centers around the world. In that moment, if I'm aware that I and this person have been separated by a system that makes me privileged in relation to that other person, I can choose to bridge that gap for a moment by engaging at full eye level with this person. Whether or not I give them money is secondary, but to uphold and maintain the fact that we are part of the same fabric and not separate people. That's in that interaction, it's a move in the direction of the vision. So every little thing that we do can be made conscious in that particular way. If I'm building an organization, how do I exit the command and control competition way that organizations function and instead move towards a collaborative way of functioning? How do I set up systems so that at least within an organization, the matching of needs and resources can happen rather than you get paid based on market value? I mean, there's so much radical action that can happen at all levels. I just wanted to be clear that it's happening in the direction of the vision and not in the direction of what makes me feel good.
So it has to do a lot also with becoming aware of the patterns that we've learned and to consciously choose whether we will follow them or not, depending on what we have identified as our purpose.
And also all the hidden violence in the world that is very carefully suppressed from our knowledge. And to become aware of the long-term and long-distance impacts of our actions. For example, every time I buy takeout food, I increase the degree of pile up of non-biodegradable trash. And I participate in the exploitation of people. I participate in unsustainable farming, all of that. What can I do even at that level? And it's overwhelming and daunting, but to just begin to ask the questions begins to be a movement. How are you doing with this interview? How is it working for you?
I'm feeling very connected with the logic that you're bringing in for me, and it brings me a lot of connection points somehow and clarity in a way, because I was always wondering how to. Maybe I wasn't even aware that I was kind of doubting of how to combine the world of NVC with the world of Joanna Macy and of the planetary needs, and how to build that connection. And this kind of helps me a little bit in building or having a clearer connection in the logic of it. Yeah, and combining those two perspectives.
Wonderful. Is there anything else?
Not at the moment, I think. Is there anything else that you would like to contribute or that you feel is still missing?
I don't know, just a strong alarm bell. I think everything that goes out these days from anyone who thinks about anything, I want us to have the alarm bell there. You know, you were talking about how the systems within which we live are starting to fall apart. That I think people know it more, but you know, contextualizing the work that we do within that imperative seems important to me.
Yeah. To me, I have a lot of trust in the knowledge, the common knowledge. So in not putting something forward yourself, but in inviting others in to bring in perspectives somehow. And
yes, and there's a lot that is hidden from us. A lot of people don't know that our phones are contributing to violence against women in the Congo. You wouldn't know that unless you made a conscious point of learning about how the world functions. It's just like a one tiny example.
Yeah, how every choice that we make has an impact, a global impact, and that's almost impossible for us as individuals to have this awareness because a lot of knowledge is not there.
Right, we cannot have it unless we want to have it or somebody gives it to us without our wanting to have it. So I like in general the learning model that says, you know, the knowledge is in individuals, but I think it's not always true. You know, even just a dumb example, calculus doesn't live inside people as a knowledge waiting to be invited. It was invented by two particular people, and ever since then it's being passed from person to person. But if you'd never encountered it, you would never know that it even exists.
Thank you so much for this. Just maybe for you also to know, like I grew up on a permaculture farm in Germany, so we had like solar panels and a way to clean the water, and so in an environment that I believe that everyone had this until I was maybe 5 years old. So there was really this feeling of it's really the belief it's possible to live in a different way, and we were living together with other people that were not my family, and we were still like family. So a lot of projects grew from this, and so for me there is a lot of awareness of this and a lot of hope and trust. So I really hope that this can somehow contribute to making a real change.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this.
Okay, I will send you the recording when I have it.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.